Alright guys, TacticalRab back again today. Hope you're all doing well and enjoying your day so far, and a crazy day of matches awaits this evening, but plenty to talk about before we get to that point. The Los Angeles Thieves guys responding to some of the frustrations from the fans online, but is it not just the players that are at fault with this roster? Very much intriguing your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed the video, subscribe if you're new as always, I would greatly appreciate it. Really helps out the channel, thank you very much indeed for doing that. First of all, just thought this was pretty funny from Spart, thrown into the absolute blender yesterday, Kavuto against Scup, not going to be a good time. He doesn't have the greatest time in this series, so maybe you can bounce back. And Los Angeles Guerrillas qualified anyway. We'll look in a few minutes time here about what the standings look like right now, which teams are going to be in losers, which teams are going to be in winners. Some are confirmed, but there's still lots on the line today, which makes today's matches very interesting, because probably the top 4 teams in the game all play against each other this evening, and then there's a matchup incredibly important for seeding as well. But I mean, yeah, first of all, just wanted to say New York Summerlanders won a series net Friday today. Thought this is a pretty decent one from Gertch, to be honest, and NFT we can all agree on. But I mean, yeah, this also just to mention, because of course we saw last year there was some things that went on with the Toronto organisation. Of course the Cammy sensitivity training caused a bit of controversy as well, but even in Modern Warfare when there was like Brack and Looney, and they were trying to go home, right, and they wouldn't let them go back because they wanted them to play at the facilities, all this type of stuff that went on, and well, the significant others of Looney, that being M right here, and Luna of course for Clayster, saying I wish Clay could do a tell-all. Everyone's mind to be absolutely mind-blown at some of the stuff that's going on. I'm in sheer awe at some of the stuff that happens on so many organisations. So disappointing. So Clay said that when he's on unrestricted free agents, he's kind of going to be able to tell all the stuff that went on behind the scenes here, but apparently some organisational stuff which has led to a lot of frustrations from Clay's front. So I guess we thought that really when franchising came around, some of the sketchy stuff that organisations do should go away. Turns out that might not fully be the case. Maybe we'll find out what this is about in a few months' time, or if Clayster gets bought out by another team, then maybe something can happen. Speaking of changes that might go down elsewhere, Yeez says he's excited for the future. He's currently the substitute on the Florida Mutineers. Was some questions when he was the sub initially. Why was he not in the starting team right at the start of the year, right? Because there was some questions like, okay, look, you've got Skies, Awakening, and Dave Paddy, pretty much 3 assault rifle players, and of course I'm pretty sure the last 3 series they played, they're 1 in 9 map count, and yes, they played OpTic FaZe in the series yesterday. They played, of course, up against the Boston Breach. Not easy series by any means, but you'd expect them to win more matches, and I mean, potentially Yeez comes in, right? Who knows if any teams actually make a sub change, or even like a straight up change before the major. You would think probably not, just because after the major you've got plenty of time to figure things out, but maybe if your team isn't doing particularly well, Florida, I believe, should get a winner's bracket spot here, so they have a decent chance to make some sort of run, just because their map count isn't terrible, because yes, they went 1 in 9, but they started off very well, so it balances each other out, but maybe Yeez to the starting team is something they're considering right now. Let's talk about the Los Angeles Thieves then, right? I thought this is pretty funny. The TacticalRab Academy founder over Drazah back in the day, after like a local LAN, I think in Modern Warfare, saying that, you know, I'm just way better than Simp. Didn't really work out from yesterday though, unfortunately. Simp and Seattle Surge get the better of them. But what a lot of people have been talking about lately, right, and I think understandably so, is just the coaching and the general management staff behind the Los Angeles Thieves. Because in fairness, they started out this year pretty solid, the squad on paper looked good, and now they've just fallen off a cliff the last few weeks, which does make you think, okay, look, maybe the coaching staff isn't necessarily doing all they could be to get the best out of this roster. In traditional sports, especially like football here in the, you know, the UK, or like soccer, right, and I'm sure it's the same in American football as well. If a team fails, it's kind of the coach, the manager, that gets a lot of the slack. Now in Call of Duty with only 4 players, it's kind of a less of a thing, but still, when you look at the track record of Jacob and Modog, right, the general manager, the last couple of years, it's not been particularly good in terms of building the rosters and then actually maintaining the success over time. Like if we look at the stats here the last few years, since Los Angeles Thieves actually came in, ignoring some of these early tourneys, last year, TJ, Kenny, Slasher, and Temp, top 6, top 6, top 6, top 12, top 6, top 8 as their record the entire season. Like that is just embarrassing, to be perfectly honest. Now, I mean, look, Jacob has been the coach the whole time, Modog's kind of been the general manager, making a lot of the calls, and you do have to think, right, okay, hang on, after that year, we go into this year, we build a theoretically even better roster, Kickoff Classic, top 4, major qualifiers 3rd, right, they look good at the start of it, come top 6 of the major, and then 0 in 5 in major 2 qualifiers. Just some, you know, questions that are going to be raised, not just about the players, but also the management staff behind them as well. Is it time to, like, completely clear house? Then again, like, what do you do, right, if you want to bring in a GM, if you want to bring in a new coach, like, where do you go, which, like, who do you pick up, right, what options are there? But that's the thing, because you always look at the players first, but then you've got to think that when you look at the track record over a couple of seasons, you might be able to get a reasonable idea that maybe the coaching staff and the general managers aren't doing the best job they could at, not just picking up the rosters themselves, but actually forming them into a competitive squad over time. So definitely intrigued to your thoughts on that in the comment section below. I don't think that just like cutting Jacob is going to make this team work. Like I think it's, well, more than that. But you know, if you get rid of the team, if you reformulate the team, but keep Jacob, then I think there's no guarantee that's going to work in the long term either, just because of the track record so far of Los Angeles Thieves with Cap as the coach. So very interesting discussion here, to be honest. Not one we usually have in esports, right? It's usually about the players, but still, like, over a long period of time, you start to get to see maybe what coach brings to the team, and I think we've already seen what Rambo brings to OpTic very quickly, and I haven't really seen that with J-Cap the last couple of years, to be honest. Now, doesn't mean, as I say, the team doesn't need a change. I think they do, but no, what type of change is it, right? Is it a two-man change? And Nabel even said this in the reverse sweep last weekend's, that he feels like the team's vibes, even before this week, when they were 0-3, not 0-5, was so chalked up that they basically needed a two-person change to turn things around. Now, I'm like, I don't imagine they'll do that before the major. There's too many moving parts to consider it. They do have Pentagram on their sub-pitch if they wanted to try something. Some have said, okay, put Kenny on the SMG, either put Drazah on the flex, or like a sub out Drazah, bring someone else in, who knows. But Octane probably has been the player underperforming the most so far this season, especially compared to the levels we expected him to be at. Other ARs, the likes of Methods, have turned up massively as of late. You've got Zero, Arcitys, Dashy, of course, Cellium, these guys absolutely killing it so far. Octane's been nowhere near that level, and even Slash in the last couple of weeks, after having a really tough start to the season, he's turned up and had some great series. I don't know how many series Octane has had this season above a 1.0, it can't be many. So Octane responds to some of the frustrations over the last day or so, like kind of getting his thoughts out there. We're just on such different pages right now. The game feels impossible in the respawns. That's when they lost to Los Angeles Guerrillas. Of course, well, yesterday they lost another series to Seattle Surge, and Kenny actually says this last night. Some days the game feels good, some days the game feels impossible. Every timing and every gunfight just seems off or hard. You need to get back on the same page as a team and work on our teamwork. Thanks for the support again. On to Major 2 we go. For the people that have zero clue and just want to be weird, I'm not blaming the game, I'm referring to our gameplay and consistency in-game, doing the right stuff, which is what makes the game hard. Something we've been trying to work on. Also, not talking about S&D either. That was pitiful. Pitiful might even be an understatement. This is the thing, like, the tweets come out, like, okay, we need to work on our teamwork and like all this type of stuff, and okay, that's probably true. Then again, if you're 0-5 in a stage, the team is probably chalked, and I'm sure Nadeshot's looking at the top of the standings right now and thinking, okay, OpTic FaZe, number 1, number 2. Then we've got London and Boston, 3rd and 4th. Like, what's going on here, right? Why aren't Thieves right in that conversation? Like, these are the biggest brands in Call of Duty. OpTic, 100 Thieves, FaZe, like, they should be the top 3 teams in the game. That's where LA Thieves was meant to be, and they've fallen way short. So I'm sure Nadeshot's not looking at this and thinking, okay, yeah, just work on your teammate, lads, will be okay for Major 3. That's probably not what's going to happen, right? So I guess they'll see on to Major 2. Like, that's what Kenny says. On to Major 2 we go. Probably no changes or no sub changes before then, but still after that, I imagine they're going to do something pretty spectacular, to be honest. Now, this also, right, because Octane, of course, he was commenting on the League of Legends stuff that was happening. This guy says focus on gods, and Octane has a certain reply, and of course he's been kind of replying and clapping back. And in fairness, like, Octane in situations like this, it's probably just better to stay off social media, to be perfectly honest, because I think he even said a few days ago that he kind of dipped from social media and he'd had a better time mentally, and now he's back in business and straight back into the blender, right? Because of course Craig was kind of roasting him yesterday. A couple of you guys pointed out this is like a World of Warcraft stream he was watching right here. Pretty sure like they're warming up for one of their matches, but it was in so many hours time at the major because the way the scheduling worked, and kind of, well, Chrome was roasting them. Maybe he was doing the same thing again during their series last night. But Octane says, look, it's a different hoodie. There's no way I can be looking at this. I got different hoodies on, brother. And then Octane goes on to say this: Twitter is full of NPCs, non-playable characters. The stuff I read on here can't actually be a real human spending the time typing this out. And then, you know, Jonathan says, Ronan, of course, maybe you should focus on Tuscan instead of Summoner's Rift. God forbid I'm not staring at a minimap 16 hours a day. I just don't want it enough. So kind of a sarcastic comment. But still, that's the thing. Octane responding to some degree. Who knows what happens to him and this roster going forwards, because if he does end up getting benched, which is what most people are suggesting right now, like Octane, Clayster are out there, right? Like, there's not many AR spots in the league. A lot of flexes are becoming ARs, as we saw with Crim as well. So who knows what happens here. But I guess he's staying confident that himself and his team can turn things around. But it's going to be far from easy. Like, Envoy's latest tweets are just depressing reading, to be honest. You look at his recent tweets. GG's Seattle lost 1-3. GG's LAG just lost 2-3. GG's whoever else lost 2-3. GG's OpTic lost 2-3. Like, you know, he's just again and again and again. And even Havoc here in the reply saying head up. But, you know, who knows? Is Havoc just going to fix all their problems? In fairness, last year he wasn't a great player on Florida. He was a solid player. But, like, different games favour different players. Maybe Havoc is just nasty at this game, as we've seen in challenges recently. He could be a good asset. But Los Angeles Thieves have a fairly long time after Major 2 to figure out exactly what they want to do. Let's talk then about the standings going into today, because there's some incredibly important games. Firstly, Boston and OpTic tied at 4-0. This is kind of the overall standings, and as you can see, the map count for Boston and OpTic is exactly the same. So, well, potentially, the tiebreakers might come in. Let's say they both win their series today with the same map count. It will then come down to the whole strength of schedule discussion we talked about, and if that's somehow still tied on the averages, then they'll actually have to do a head-to-head matchup, like playoff for the number 1 seed. But that's almost certainly not going to happen, but still, there's like a, I don't know, 1% chance that does happen, which could be pretty exciting. But these are the standings then. So Los Angeles Thieves 0-5, 5 loss streak, 7-15 map count, disastrous stuff. Paris Legion also guaranteed to go down, as are, I believe, the Minnesota Rokkr. I'm pretty sure that with an 8-13 map count with a 38% win percentage, there's no chance that they can make it out. Like, I'm pretty sure that's the case, because I think that if anything, there's going to be a crazy 2-3 tiebreaker, and 2 teams are going to lose out. Like, let's say Toronto lose, they're 1-4. Subliners would be 3-2, therefore Minnesota Rokkr lose the 3-way head-to-head tiebreaker on map win percentage, and even if Toronto win today and New York Subliners lose, then it's a 5-way 2-3 map count type percentage thing, and there's no way Minnesota Rokkr can not be the worst in that situation. So I'm pretty sure either way, Rokkr are out for their own major in the losers bracket, which means there's 1 more spot up for grabs in the lower side and 3 more spots in the winner side. As I say, Florida are in a decent spot, because with a 7-9 44 win percentage, that's actually slightly better than Seattle Surge's 9-12 43%, which it means that Florida are slightly above Surge right now. So if New York win tonight against Toronto Ultra, they'll be 3-2. That'll of course guarantee them all the way through. But if they lose pretty convincingly, then of course their win percentage goes down quite a lot, right? So they need to win at least a couple of maps here in this Toronto series, and then they should be okay. But I mean, still, it's absolute chaos, because Toronto's map count is pretty good at 47, given they're 1-3. So they need to win tonight, and they'll be okay. Minnesota Rokkr are down, and then Seattle Surge more than likely will follow them after that, right? Because that's the thing. Seattle are 2-3, but with a 43%. If New York get bodied, they can still go down, but if they don't get bodied and like it's 2-3 or something, they probably stay up. So I mean, it's honestly crazy, all the implications here. But of course, on the upper side, you've got some very important series as well for seeding. OpTic versus FaZe, Boston versus London Royal Ravens. Like, I mean, yeah, what happens here at the top is going to be very exciting, and then who they potentially match up here from the lower side in that winners bracket. All these 5 teams now are confirmed. This is Easy Max explanation. Minnesota in lowers, Florida pretty much locked in, but not guaranteed. New York locked in with a win. 2-3 loss gets them above Florida, so they need to win a couple of maps in this series. They should be okay. Toronto win, and they're in, no doubt. Seattle in a hole with 9-12, so not ideal for Seattle. They need either New York to win or Toronto to win comfortably. But if it goes like game 5 in that series, then Seattle probably go down. So the tiebreakers today are pretty crazy, but these are the 3 games, and I honestly think so far this season, these might be the hardest 3 games to call that we've had in a very long time. London versus Boston, I think I'm just going to take London until proven otherwise. Maybe I'm getting a bit optimistic here, but I think right now 3rd and 4th teams in the game. Boston have been on fire as of late. They're on a crazy win streak in their hardpoint and their series as well, but Methods as of late has been a free 1.9, 1.7 KT. I feel like he can't keep doing that forever. If he does, fair play. But I'm thinking today he drops some more like a 1.2. London turn up, win this in a game 5. I think it's going to be a very close series though. Then FaZe versus OpTic. This is honestly so tough to call right now. OpTic have beaten them 2 times so far this year. I honestly think all these series today kind of have game 5s across the board. But so far this stage, I've seen more from OpTic in terms of just raw performance and in terms of clutch factor than FaZe have brought to the party. So I think I'm going to take OpTic 3-2, London 3-2 in the first series, and then New York versus Ultra. Right, who knows how to call this one? I think I'm going to take New York 3-2. I don't know what I'm doing anymore, but I'm on this New York hype train. But very much intrigued to your thoughts on all this stuff in the comment section below. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did enjoy it, hit the like button. Tells the YouTube gods it's a good video. I just like you should see it as well. And I'm growing the competitive Call of Duty community. Thank you much as always. Take care, and I will see you next time.